Ndewo, greetings. It is my pleasure, always my pleasure and honor to welcome you to another episode of Chiism Live. What an opportunity to be walking amongst the living, breathing, inhaling and exhaling. I'm so excited about being alive today and the topic of discussion. I've lit, if you look behind me, I've lit all the candles in honor of my ancestors, your ancestors, all those who lost their lives because of whatever illnesses, or just because it was their time to go to become ancestors, and those who left a little early are still on that journey. It is my pleasure, as always, to introduce to you, for those of you who don't know him, Dibia Ochoaja, Yudi Onyoha. Yudi Ndewo Kedu.
Oh, well, y'all guys here to all of you.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
All right.
Topic. So let's get to it.
It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you. I don't know how it is over where you are. Well, we're in the same state, so because it's very sunny, isn't it beautiful? Had the opportunity to get up very early and go for a walk, and that is something that if you're not doing it, that's something you must do. We must have exercise as part of our daily regimen, because I'm telling you, there's so much mess going on out there. So I am very excited to be walking amongst the living. Aren't you, Yudi?
Yes, I am. And speaking of exercise, I got to really get serious about it. Being at home, I'm working from the house all the time. I mean, you kind of get lazy. You start gassing out.
Yes, I'm trying to get the weight down and because out of how that's what we must do to be healthy in this pandemic, COVID pandemic. Before we go any further, I just want to invite people to join us, our YouTube channel, Chiism of Africa, and welcome you to our website, chiism.org. And you can contact us at 248-773-1857. We're trying to make ourselves available to you, so that you know that you can always reach out to us. You can always reach out to us. As I indicated earlier, I love this topic, ancestor veneration. It's a universal spiritual ritual. And I just want to very briefly let you know what it is before we actually go into the conversation, because many people don't understand when we as Africans believe very strongly in paying honors and reverence to our ancestors. The social or non-religious function of ancestor veneration is to cultivate kinship values such as filial piety, family loyalty, and continuity of the family lineage, and it goes on and on and on. And the video that I showed earlier just simply lets you know that it's not the Africans. It's not just the Africans who are engaged in ancestor veneration. Chiism, certainly Guardianism. The Islam is engaged in ancestral veneration. also Judaism, Shintoism, Taoism, Bahaism, Christianity, Jainism, Jainism, I think it is, Ifa religion,
Jainism, yeah.
Baha'i religion, Vodou, Jatere. If you go and read all of these religions, and there are many, many more, Sikhism, you know, name it, Zoroastrianism, you go, veneration of the ancestors. But why is it, UD, that Africans are sort of timid when it comes to the veneration of our ancestors? And let me be clear, it's not all Africans, but there are many Africans who are reluctant to venerate their ancestors. Why is that?
Well, first of all, it's there's a level of demonization when it comes to ancestral reverence. Okay, one of the misunderstanding about ancestral reverence is using the word worship. You know, you talk about, oh, we worship our ancestors. No, we don't. The word, when you worship something, it simply means that you believe that whatever it is that you're devoting to has supernatural powers, right? And our relationship with our ancestors has nothing to do with supernatural powers or a supernatural relationship in terms of them being able to make something magical happen. Every culture in the world has a level of ancestral reverence in their relationship with, number one, their spirituality or religion, and number two, with their history. Ancestral reverence is it's a roadmap of where a community or a family has been, and it offers a blueprint to the future. You have to know where you've been to know where it is that you're going. Everything that we enjoy in our lives today, all the advances that we have in our communities or societies today, was put forth by somebody that came before us. And those people that came before us is our ancestors. In Christian religious history, Abraham, or should I say in Judaism, Abraham is an ancestor, the father of humanity, according to the Jews. Moses is an ancestor. Ruth, Gideon, Solomon, King David, so on and so forth. In Judaism, those people are all ancestors and they're revered by Hebrews in their own religious context. In Christianism, you talk about people like Paul, right? Even in the Bible, you have people in the Bible such as Matthew, James, John. Whether they existed or not, it's not relevant for this specific discussion that we're having right now. But if you talk about people that contributed to the civilizations of the European, people like Michelangelo, Da Vinci, these are all ancestors of the Europeans. You know, the Italians, the British. You could talk about their kings and their queens and people, Winston Churchill. You know, people that contributed to the civilization and civility of the Europeans. These are all ancestors. Every culture in the world has ancestral reverence because there were people that came before those societies were established, or there were people that were responsible for establishing those societies. The demonization of African ancestry, right, is mainly from the Christian perspective. You know, remove what is there, supplant it with yours. The funny thing is that even though we demonize African ancestral reverence, we seem to extol the ancestors of those people that colonized us, and those people that miseducated us. All of a sudden, Abraham becomes our ancestors. Abraham of the Hebrews becomes the father of humanities to the guy from Onitsha or the guy from Ibibio. You know, we talk about ancestors like Vasco da Gama. They become our ancestor. We talk about Ferdinand Magellan. We talk about Mungo Park, who supposedly discovered the Niger River, even though there were people living there before he showed up. We seem to adopt the history told to us by those people whose modus operandi is to take away our freedoms, fiscal freedom, and also scholarship. So that way we look down on ourselves and look up to them as people responsible for civilizing us, even though we maintain our own civilization patterns before, excuse me, before the European came. This is just about demonization. This is about making you feel less than who you really are. This is about making you feel that you have not contributed anything to civilized behavior. Through incessant public schooling, a school system replaced by European system, so on and so forth. From the day you were born in your family, for example, I speak when I speak with people, I always remind them of this song. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible told me so. That was sung in your home. You internalized that. Then you went to school during the morning assembly, it was sung there. You internalized it. Then you went to high school, it was sung there, you internalized it. Then you went to church on Sunday, it was sung there, you internalized it. By the time you became an adult, there was nothing left up here of your contribution to civilized behavior other than what was told to you in church, or by those people whose intention was to exercise any understanding or knowledge of who you are and where you've been and the contributions you've made to civilized behavior. So the demonization of ancestral reverence, not worship, is really political and economic. The more you justify yourself by somebody else's standard, the more you're subject to control. And so,
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you, can we safely say that it's rather difficult for you to revere ancestors that you love personally?
Yeah.
You see, because many of our people have been taught that our ancestors did some bad things. And because they did all these bad things,
come on,
then they're not good enough to be revered. And then when you're presented with these other ancestors who supposedly came to your land and educated your ancestors and stopped some of their practices, like, and I hear it all the time, that Africans killed twins. And based on that, why in the world would you want to revere such people? You understand? But then talk about I want you to talk about some of what the ancestors of all the races have done.
Oh man,
and yet they are still revered. Go ahead.
There's a long list of it. Again, demonizing things that are African, right, serves a greater purpose for those people that colonized you, right? It keeps you subservient. Now, as far as our ancestors doing evil things, and then you mentioned the killing of the twins. Well, let's take that for example. That was a universal practice. Not just the killing of twins, but infanticide was universal. The Romans practiced it. The Greeks did it. In South America, the Incas did it. India did it. And some Indian communities still do it today. It was done in Carthage. As a matter of fact, in human history, there are only two places that you could really say didn't practice infanticide, because whether it's killing of twins or killing of just a single child, it's all the same to me. I'll imagine that anybody who is out there that has any brain cells left will understand that it's not necessarily bad because it's twins. It is infanticide, killing of babies. Egyptians didn't practice it. When the archaeologists and people that study Egyptian history, that don't find anywhere in Egyptian history that infanticide was practiced. And then the Hebrews didn't have that practice. And as a matter of fact, for those of us that believe that we're Hebrews, Black Jews, or whatever it is, you might want to ask yourself, if the Hebrews didn't practice infanticide, then where did you get that practice from?
Okay.
Okay, that's just another footnote in history there to let you know that we have nothing to do with the Hebrews, but that's a topic for another discussion. Now, infanticide, and I'm just not going to be specific, the killing of the twins and all that. Infanticide number one, was practiced if, number one, the baby that was born was not in good health. There was something, some kind of birth defect, right? They got rid of that child. Number two, and remember, a lot of these practices was based on ignorance. Science was not advanced at that time, and people were clamoring to figure out, to explain their surroundings and things that were happening to them. And then as science continued to evolve, then we got a better understanding of why people have twins, why deformities happen. It has nothing to do with evil spirits and all that. It is said that the enemy of religion is science. And that goes for the enemy of ignorance is science too. Now, infanticide was something that was practiced universal, right? So it wasn't something that just Africans did or people of Igbo, the Igbo tribe did. The Yorubas did it. As a matter of fact, as recent as 2004, it happened in Abuja. People from the north that did that. Kenya till today practices infanticide, right? Killing of twins. It's still practiced in Kenya today. But I will bet you $1 million that the Kenyans have a lot of reverence for their ancestors, because the ancestor is the reason why you're here today. On a nucleus level, ancestry is your family tree. And your family tree is directly tied into the family tree of the community because you are part of it. You're part of the community, right? Ignorance is one of the reasons why infanticide was practiced, not just in Igboland, but all over the world. It was the Christian missionaries that came and then, changed that conversation, changed the dynamics, and then established it as something that was evil, and then tried to, educate the communities which they permeated or that they planned on controlling. Went ahead and, demonized it, and through an incessant educational process, people came to believe that in Igboland, for example, we were the only people that practiced it and that it was evil. I mean, there was nothing, great about infanticide other than the fact that it was practiced due to economic reasons, ignorance, political, spiritual, and even China practiced infanticide where you couldn't have more than one child. If you had more than one child, the child was killed. Now, a lot of the infanticide that we talk about in Igboland in particular, it wasn't the fact that if you had twins, the child was killed. If you had a twin, they took the child to the forest and left the child over there to die. By whatever means the child, whether it's a wild animal that gets the child or the child gets, malnutrition and dies or what have you. It wasn't that the child was taken out and then butchered or got the head cut off or anything like that. They just took the child away. In Igbo culture, it was believed that the reason why the parents had a twin was because the father was evil. The father had done something. They understood in their mind that a human being is supposed to have one child and one child only.
At a time.
At a time. And when you had two children, three children, triplets or whatever, it was like an abomination because to them, it didn't follow the natural process of procreation. This was just ignorant, right? I am very confident that if the Christian missionaries didn't come to Africa, we would have been able to evolve in our science to understand that having twins was part of a natural process and that there was nothing evil about it. But the Europeans and the missionaries defined it for us, and through an incessant education process made us, almost like in hypnosis, to believe that what we were doing was evil. Yes, it wasn't a good thing. It wasn't, something that you have to go out there and beat your chest about, but that's just the way it happened. It was universal. And by the way, to kind of go back to a point that you made in the question that you asked me, when we talk about the evils that our ancestors did, why don't we compare it to the evils that ancestors of other human communities did? What about Genghis Khan? that butchered people from Mongolia all the way to Europe, to Gaul. How about that? How about King Henry VIII that is revered by the British? What about Adolf Hitler? He's an ancestor of the Germans. What about the 6 million Jews of the 60 million people that lost their lives because of Adolf Hitler? What about the slave owners? Right?
Talking about the slave owners, I don't know if how many people who understand, these people that you're revering, that you think that are better than your own ancestors. Let's remember our ancestors never had prisons.
We never did.
They never had anything built strictly to harness human life and tie it up and throw them away. The ancestors were not the ones, our ancestors were not the ones that were throwing human beings, pregnant women into the sea to be eaten by sharks.
Thank you.
It was not our ancestors that did that.
Didn't do that.
So there are different ancestors all over the world that did some horrific things, but you don't throw the baby out with the dirty bathwater. Then you don't now say all of our ancestors are so bad, so you refrain and reject honoring and remembering them. And but you go to church and you pay tithes, you do whatever all they say that you have to do to free yourself of your connection to your ancestors. Why is it? I want to ask you this. Why is it that it's imperative that our people of African descent celebrate this practice, the veneration? And I ask you this because I know one of the reasons why we feel, I hate to use the word, but we feel inferior to others is because, like, when particularly our children, they go to school, they see the ancestors of other people, right? But they don't tell them what those ancestors did. They just tell them about the positive things the ancestors did. Do you understand? Well, they don't tell them about the ancestors, our own ancestors, the positive things our ancestors did. You understand? So we don't see a need to honor our ancestors. We just, like you were talking about the slaves and all that, I mean, the twins and what have you. But our ancestors did a lot of good things. Humanity and civilization began in Africa. And if that's the case, that means we did a lot of positive things.
We did a lot of things. We did a lot of
things. Our ancestors did a lot of things that they should be recognized for, because frankly, for us as individuals, we're laying the foundations for people honoring us when we leave this earth. If people will measure who we are, not based on our mistakes, every human being makes mistakes, or based on whatever level of ignorance we had, right? So I'm asking you the question then, and I suppose I've just touched upon a bit of it. Why is it, particularly for our young people, why must they revere? Why must we practice reverence to the ancestors? Why is that so critical and important?
Well, before I get into that, let me just say, bring a footnote to history to bear. John Hawkins, you probably heard of him. He was one of the most prominent English slavers and made a lot of profit, to the point that when he came back after selling slaves that he got from Africa to the Spaniards in the Indies, Queen Elizabeth I sponsored the slave trade, and they made a lot of money for the crown. That was a sin against humanity. But when you talk about Queen Elizabeth and you talk about John Hawkins, you just talk about all the good that they did for their people, the institutions that were established for their people through the slave trade, right? That's what you talk about. So I just wanted to bring that, just bring that up to let people understand that ancestors from other nations committed a lot of sin, did a lot of bad things that was worse than a killing of twins in Igboland, per se. Like you mentioned earlier, throwing pregnant women overboard to be eaten by sharks, right? Using babies as fishing lures to get alligators and stuff like that. That was happening in Florida, here in the United States. These people with evil intent established institutions of profit that benefited the colonial master and the slave master. And they built institutions in reverence to these ancestors. We don't have an educational system in Africa that promotes an understanding of the contributions that those that came before us made to civilized behavior. What institutions, what part of our social apparatus was developed by certain individuals. Any record of such things that we may have had was destroyed through colonialism. Institutions in Cameroon, books that were written by the king of Cameroon in the 19th century was destroyed. So unless we have leadership in Africa that in our educational system is able to establish a curriculum that emphasizes our contribution to civilized behavior, that talks about people like Shaka Zulu and what they did to build up the Zulu nation. Talk about people like Moshe Shu, maybe the Dahomean female army. I knew nothing about the Dahomean female army until I came to the United States. And it just so happened that when I was developing the African calendar and doing my research, that's when I found out about the Dahomean female army. 5,000 ancestors, women, that were the most feared warriors in all of Dahomey and were the personal private bodyguards to the king of Dahomey. We don't talk about the contributions that we made in mathematics. For example, it was our ancestors that came up with the Le Bombe Bones, the first recognized mathematical calculation for distance. That was in Central Africa. Black folks did it. We started math before the Europeans did, before the Chinese did, before the Mayans did. Then you have the Ishiaka bones. It's also mathematics. Nobody talks about the civilization or the archaeological find in South Africa that is over 200,000 years old. We didn't learn that in school. Instead, we learned about Queen Elizabeth I. We learned about Mungo Park. We learned about Abraham Lincoln. We learned about the ancestors of all other human races, but never learned anything about our own ancestors. And the only ancestors that we cared to put in our textbooks were those people that established empires based on Islam. At least the Islamic scholars were able to get themselves into Africa's or Nigerian history books, where we talk about Ibn Battuta, the great warrior leader that established his caliphate in northern Nigeria. We talk about that. But we talk about them in terms of promoting somebody else's historical culture. People that colonized us through Islam, yes. And all of a sudden, we look upon our contribution to civilized behavior based on somebody else's spiritual philosophy. Nothing African at all. So what we need is to re-educate our people, have programs and forums like this, talk about it, let people understand there's no shame in ancestral reverence because your ancestors offer a blueprint to where, the roadmap to where we've been, the roadmap to what contributions we've made to civilized behavior, and a blueprint to where we need to go. Any mistakes that our ancestors made, it is incumbent upon us to correct those mistakes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There it is right there. There it is right there. I think you hit it right there. It is not that they didn't make mistakes. It's not that they didn't do bad things. Every culture does it. Every person. Yes. Think about it. African Americans came on a good ship, Jesus. Okay?
Thank you.
Let's talk about
Nobody
that.
talked about that.
Slave masters threw our ancestors pregnant, whatever. If you were weak, they destroyed you. They threw it away. But we go to their churches. Listen, let me tell you something. I'm going to I'm kind of raising my voice right now. I'm just listening to you. One of the things that is so critical for us to understand, you can't talk about what people are doing to you when you allow it to be done. As a matter of fact, they're not doing it to us anymore. We're doing it to ourselves. We're teaching our children that they're less than. You see, we're not. If you don't educate your children and tell them the truth about who they are, let me tell you, somebody's going to do it for you and they'll do it gladly. All right. So don't expect anybody else. Look, the world is a complete. It's a Serengeti. Only the survive. Only the fittest will survive. We are all in this Serengeti trying to survive. You know what I'm saying? They will eat you alive if you allow them. Who are them? I'm talking about all those who see your weakness. That's why we are weak. We have no backbone. We embrace all kinds of nonsense. We throw our things away. Our people are being killed in China. They're being harmed. They are being shot in the streets of the United States.
Disrespected all over the globe.
All over the world. And we want to know why? You want to know why? Because we disrespect ourselves. We don't believe in ourselves.
Absolutely.
I tell people, I'm going to tell you something. I have people who call me, Dr. Osimiri, why? You have to be nice. Oh, wait, back it up. This program is not about anybody but us. This program is to remind us where we are, and we need to move from the valley to the mountaintop. You cannot do it. You cannot jump to the mountaintop. You have got to learn. You have to take the necessary steps so you can get to the top. If you're not willing to do that, you will always be a glorified servant, preaching someone else's Bible, preaching someone else's whatever holy book. There's an African proverb. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we can talk about other people, regurgitate other people's history, but we don't know our own. Veneration of our ancestors is the beginning, and I have got to applaud those who are doing it today. Those who continue to pour libations. And Yudi, just for a moment, could you do a libations for some of these people who don't know why the kola nut? I know you have kola nut there. We use the kola nut, right? To do what? Talk about that for a minute. Well, and why it's so important.
Well, for our audience, kola nut is a welcoming spiritual tool. Where I come from in Ngboro in Nigeria, when somebody visits you, whether they visit the village or they visit you in your personal home, you bring umzun, chalk, and you bring the kola nut. And when you bring both of them, it means that the person that came to your place is very welcomed, and you're willing to put your life on the line in their protection as long as they are under your roof. You guarantee their safety. In Ngboro, we say, Imenta, Gemimo. Now, if you come to visit me and I do not offer you the kola nut, I've not really welcomed you. I have not guaranteed your safety under my roof. So when you come to visit, we pour libations, we break kola nut. When you're breaking the kola nut, you break it in Igbo language. We don't break it in English because we believe that the kola nut doesn't understand English. We were breaking kola nut before the British people came in. And since it's a spiritual practice in reverence and honor to Chineke and in worship of Chineke and in reverence to our ancestors, we break the kola nut in Igbo. So we say, Nde Oja Abiala. As you know, you wetara oji, wetere ndụ. Ebe ọjị a si pụta Chineke ti ife garawa ọgụ nzụ. Ọnọfịa ọnụ ụzọ ka ọ dịrịwa mma. Ebe beru, uge beru, nke esi ibe ebela, nku gwakwa ya. Anyị na-ekpe ekpere na-ayọ Chineke ma ndị ichie ọmụmụ ka ọ bụrụ nke anyị. Arụ isi ike ka ọ bụrụ nke anyị. Ogologo ndụ ka ọ bụrụ nke anyị. Ife ahụ eji ụzọ ụmụ ka ọ bụrụ nke anyị. Anyị na-ekpe na-arịọ si biko onye kere ụwa mezuoro anyị ihe anyị ọmụmụ bụ inye anyị arụ isi ike ya ọdịla imezuru anyị emezu gị inye anyị arụ isi ike inye anyị ogologo ndụ ya ọdịla imezuru anyị emezu. Chineke anyị na-ekpe ekpere na-arịọ gị biko mezuoro anyị onye kere ụwa. Ndị ichie unu bịa gwere ọjị unu taa. Chineke ọjị dị nwa ebe a taa. Ọfọ ya gazie ise all about breaking kola nut in a nutshell.
And then what it is? What is it? It's a simple gesture towards not only the Most High, But
the ancestors, because
the ancestors.
ancestors are responsible for you being here. Let me just say this. I think this is really very important. Without your ancestors, there is no you. Your ancestors built the community that we stand on today. The spiritual philosophies we stand on today was given to us by our ancestors. Our scientific discoveries in medicine or what have you was given to us by our ancestors.
That's right.
Every knowledge that we have today,
Our language,
our spirituality, our understanding of the Almighty Creator Chineke, knowing the difference between right and wrong, structuring a society, everything that we do today to keep us cohesive and moving forward was provided to us by our ancestors, just like it was provided to other communities by their ancestors. Ancestral reverence is as important as your understanding of the Most High Chineke. Because you got to understand one thing. You really have to understand this, and I have to stress it. Without our ancestors, you will have no understanding of God.
Say it again.
Without our ancestors, you wouldn't have had any understanding of God, of Chineke. It is our ancestors that provided us the spiritual or religious philosophies that we abide by today. While we as Africans are sitting around looking down on our ancestors, why those people that colonized and enslaved us extol their ancestors, understand one thing. Reverence to your ancestors is an appreciation of your journey from the dawn of history. It is your understanding that the blueprint, that your DNA is tied to your past. It is what's going to enable you to know where you've been, know where you are today, and chart a future for yourself and the generations that come after you. Every culture in the world is involved in ancestral reverence. So my people of African ancestry,
say it again.
Very important that we make ancestral reverence our number one spiritual obligation.
Obligation is the word. Obligation.
Without ancestral relevance, you might as well just forget about the Almighty God, because without your ancestors, you never would have known anything.
Yeah, and if you don't appreciate them, if you don't appreciate your ancestors, telling me you appreciate yourself.
You don't appreciate yourself. You look down upon yourself when you don't have an appreciation of those people that came before you. So you must look to your future by understanding where you've been, where you are today, why you are in the condition that you are in today, so that you can chart a better future. And any mistakes that your ancestors made in the past, just like any other mistake that other ancestors made in the past, it is your obligation to make those corrections. And let me give you an example. As much as in the United States, we talk about slavery and all that, and then the new president, Barack Obama, and all the other presidents have come after Abraham Lincoln, who tried to correct the effect of slavery, even though it was economic. But his main focus was building a better nation, not necessarily exercising slavery, but stopping slavery to form a more perfect union.
That's right.
That's what every president since Abraham Lincoln have talked about. Sins of our fathers. Every community in the world has that phrase.
And they correct it. They try to correct it. They don't say
ours. Instead of correcting, we jettison everything about our ancestry. We look upon our ancestry as less than, and then we adopt the ancestry of those people that continually take away our physical and spiritual and economic freedoms. I'll give you an example too. When you talk about contributions that ancestors have made to civilized behavior, smallpox in the United States. Wasn't it smallpox? The cure the vaccination from smallpox came from an African slave. But because he was a slave, the slave masters, of course, took that knowledge and then, you know, took it upon themselves to bring it out to the world as if they are the ones that discovered it. But
Yes.
it was an African slave from Ghana, I think.
Yes.
Came up with a cure. And the way it wasn't that he came up with it, he just had the knowledge that in his ancestral home, this is what was done when there was a pandemic. This is how we were able to control a pandemic. Give them that information and they were able to develop a vaccine. Now, Africans will look upon it today because their mind have been so Christianized as voodoo, as opposed to science, or as opposed to contribution that their ancestors made to civilized behavior in terms of science. So we must go back, whether you want to call it religion, whatever it is that you want to call it, we must go back and investigate the contributions that our ancestors have made in all areas of civilized behavior, from science to history to architecture, medicine, art, whatever it is that we have or we had before the Europeans came to Africa with the Bible, or the Muslims came to our shores with the Quran. We must go back and investigate those things. Because that's what gives us pride in who we are. That's what makes us feel good about ourselves. All people tell stories that make them feel good about themselves, but we tell somebody else's story. We haven't told our story yet.
You know, I mean, and I want people to understand the purpose of Chiism Live. It's not just about prayer. We have a spiritual forum where we do if you're interested, I will invite you to it, where we do actual prayers and what have you. But this is supposed to be educational. The most powerful tool, and I always have to go back to what Stephen Biko said to young South Africans, and that is that the most powerful tool in the hands of an oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Absolutely. Okay, so the oppressor, the objective of the oppressor is not to uplift you mentally. You've got to understand that. That's why the mind is a powerful tool. If your mind can be twisted, and it's easily twisted, if your mind can be twisted, then it can be used as a tool against you. I said it before, you use a tool to build or to break down. And so when your mind becomes a tool, it can be used to break you down. Think about this. For those of us who believe in the Bible, you're supposed to be descendants of Ham. Go back and read what Ham is, who he is. All right? He's less than everybody else. And that's your ancestors. And you buy into that. And you teach your children that. Where the Bible says that you have got to honor and respect your slave masters. Honor and respect those who abuse you.
Yeah.
And you think that's a good thing?
Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's.
Yeah, your mind, yes. Your mind can be twisted. Our minds are twisted. African people, wake up. You may not like what we're saying today. It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to like it. But I'm going to say it anyway. We're going to say it anyway. The mind is a tool. Our tool has been used to deceive us to the extent that people who look like us, our ancestors, we don't appreciate them. We allow others to take what they did and make it their own. They sell it right back to us. And we think we've got something new. But because we don't appreciate our ancestors and honor them and glorify them, we don't fight when people take what belongs to us. How many things have been taken from Africa and in European libraries and European museums? Who allowed them to do that?
And the knowledge they took from Black Africa.
Yeah. Who allowed
into theirs?
That's why I say, Dibia, I am not forcing or focusing on what they did, whoever they are. I'm focusing on what we're doing.
To ourselves.
We are allowing to do. I get concerned, quite frankly, when I'm challenged, because I do get challenged, you know, and I really don't care, you know. I always say that if a person who doesn't agree with me It's okay. We don't have to agree. We can agree to disagree. But if you hate me because I don't agree to abandon who I am, then let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. It don't matter to me.
There's no room for exclusive truth.
There's no room for that. Right now, I'm fighting personally because all of us have a responsibility. We all have a responsibility to uplift our people. Whatever I can do, I have my children and grandchildren, your children and grandchildren. That's what I'm fighting for. Some of the elders, you can't say nothing else to them. It's already baked in there. But before our children observe, you know what I'm saying? Before they hold on to all that nonsense and then carry it over to the next generation, we've got to do whatever we have to do. You know, if you're not choke that's an African proverb, Igbo proverb. What you seek, so shall you find. What is it? My question, Yudi. What is it that we seek? I look at Chiism. Why is it that Chiism focuses so much on ancestral veneration?
It's about family unity, right? And your genealogical continuity.
Continuity, yes.
Right? And when you talk about a community is made up of individuals, then it's made up of families, then it's made up of maybe villages, cities, or villages, towns, cities, then a country. So when you talk about human communities, you could talk about it in terms of a village, a town, a city, a state, a country, a continent, and a race of people. You understand? You could break it down that way. So when you use the word human community or communities, it just depends on what it is or what sense you're trying to make and what it is that you want to talk about. As I said earlier, ancestral reverence or appreciation is a roadmap to where you've been and your contributions to civilized behavior. It is absolutely imperative that ancestral reverence go hand in hand with God worship. There's no denying that without those that came before us, we wouldn't know anything about God. And if there were no people that came before us, we would not exist right now. All ancestors in the world, in a human community, from all continents, from all nations, from all civilizations, have made mistakes. They have a black eye in a lot of areas of life. Germany, Europe, France with Napoleon, Ivan the Great of Russia, King Henry VIII of England, Montezuma in South America. And I'm just talking about prominent ancestors here. Then you have those people that nobody even talks about, that were able to invent things, that were able to address a specific concern in the society, whether it's art, whether it's medicine, politics, warfare in protection of the community, the great warriors, the builders of empires like Shaka Zulu. Whatever it is that we feel or think that we are today was made possible by those people that came before us. And those people that came before us are our ancestors. Again, our ancestors focuses in our family unit, our genealogical continuity, both on the myopic scale and also from a general, perspective. Ancestors are very important. We are nothing without them. So for us to be able to chart the course that we want for our children, if we are interested in a future that has a level of primordial identity, because it's absolutely imperative that you have primordial identity in everything that you do. 1,000 years from now, your great, 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 however far removed they are, grandchildren, are going to ask, what contributions did we make in this area of human, interaction or
Yes.
activity? What are you going to say to them then? That you made no contributions to civilized behavior? That you were primitive, that you didn't have any cure for malaria? When you had cure for malaria, we were curing malaria. We were being bitten by mosquitoes before the Europeans came to give us chloroquine and camoquine and nivaquine. When I broke my bones, did we have dibias or charges that were able to set your bones straight so that you can heal? If there was a tumor in your head, do we even know that we had brain surgeons in Africa? People that did brain surgery without anesthetics, without putting you to sleep. You could check the videos that are there and you could read up on it. What area of human endeavor did our ancestors not thrive in before the European came?
Dibia, here's the key thing that I want everybody that's listening to us today to know. If you look in the mirror and you're proud of what you see, you're proud of your ancestors.
Bingo.
If you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see, and you feel that you must bleach your skin, and you feel that your hair texture is bad, and you feel anything about you has to change, not to mirror the ancestors, but to mirror someone else's ancestor, you don't like yourself. You can pretend all you want. You can stand there with your blonde wig and your white skin that you bleached out and all of that. You're not proud of who you are. And for that matter, you're not proud of Chineke. Because why would Chineke make something that looks like you when something else will do? The reason why ancestral veneration is important is because that means we love and honor ourselves. We love and honor ourselves. You cannot expect anyone to love you when it's obvious you don't love yourself. Why is it that they're doing what they're doing to us in foreign countries? First of all, I have enough pride in myself to know what foreign country I'm not going to go to. I don't want to go to anywhere that they will grab me, hang me on the tree, and beat me and call me all kinds of names. And I don't fight back. I buy into it. I believe it. Because I don't like me. So instead of me fighting to correct that, I fight to be embraced. I fight to say, I can be just like you. Never mind my ancestors. It's not, they're bad. But me, on the other hand, I'm not them. I want to be like you. This is what we do. Yep. This is why we're disrespected. You cannot blame white people for the way that they feel about who they are. They embrace who they are in every way. Good, bad, or indifferent, they embrace that. But it starts from the fact that if you look at their history books, they embrace their ancestors. They uplift their ancestors in books. The Chinese, everybody, but not us. And yet you have the audacity as a Black person to speak up, then you're a radical. What is radical about liking me? And as a matter of fact, if I can like me, I can present that liked image to somebody else, and then they can appreciate me. But if I'm all hobbled, I'm all embarrassed, if I'm ashamed to present myself to others, how in the world can they embrace me? If you come to my home, as you can see, I love my Africanness. That's who I am. And every time that I have an African art piece on the wall, I'm saying to myself, Nde were my ancestors, thank you for who I am. That doesn't mean I don't have a different other kinds of art pieces. But every time I take the time and take something that my ancestors gave me, put it in my home, put it near me, I am saying to myself, I love my past and I love me. Chiism is doing just that. That's what we're trying to say. We're not trying to say, oh, don't be this, whatever it is you've elected to be, but never, ever throw hot water on your own skin, on your own people, on your own culture, on your own traditions. Because once you show the world that you are proud of who you are, that's when you can come to the table and dine with everyone else. But as long as you're always a follower, as long as you're always there to beg to be accepted, nobody will accept you. You go ahead. I've said my
About a whole lot of stuff, man. I'm lost for words right now, but I just want to make a few points that I think is very important, and it's based on some observations I think that we need to talk about, and then it kind of ties everything together in terms of ancestral reverence and the contribution that we've made to civilized behavior, and the idea that we have to be appreciative of our history, our past, our ancestors, and all those things that are basically African. We have to appreciate it. So I'm going to make a couple of points here. One point is simply it's this. Let's take England, because we were colonized by the British. So I'm going to use them, as a test tube here. If you go into the castles in Britain, you get to see a lot of, you see the knights, the outfit.
Yes.
The swords and the spears and all those ancient things that, is almost like what's the word for it? A recording of their history, their ancestral journeys. You could see that up on the wall, right? The Knights Templar, all kinds of stuff. You see that. They're extolling their heroes. You could see it in the castles. Those people can afford castles and be able to record these things where you could physically see it, right? In Britain, you see that. You go to Europe, you see the same thing. You see all that stuff. You see it recorded as an archaeological example of their ancestry and their contribution, their history, where they've been. But you also go to their museums and you see things that were taken from Africa that to you is not valuable, but in the museum over there is priceless. It's worth $10, $20 million. You can't get your hands on it. You can't buy it. We have things that we don't value ourselves, but those same things are very valuable to those people that colonized us. So a lot of beautiful artwork was taken from Africa to Europe, put in museums, and of course, those people that could afford it were able to buy it and put it in their house. Some people had a little bite of conscience and returned it, like the 20-foot statue of Bini Orba that was returned by this guy, the descendant of Lord Lugard. He eventually brought this giant bronze statue back to Africa. Those things that we look at that is not valuable, that we demonize, is being appreciated by the people that colonized us and turned us against ourselves. That is so weird and so annoying that the appreciation of African culture is outside of Africa as opposed to within. And then in Europe, the appreciation of European culture and the contribution to civilized behavior is in Europe and outside of Europe, because we were the ones colonized to appreciate them. So they're getting it both ways. We are getting it one way. They're appreciating what they took from us, but we don't appreciate ourselves. But then we appreciate them, you understand what I'm saying? And their history.
Yes.
Why denying ourselves? So it's not a two-way street. That's number one. Now, number two, according to John Henry Clark, those things that sustained us must be continued. That statement goes for every culture in the world. Those things that sustained any culture before they were interrupted must be continued. There's such a thing as cross-cultural pollination. You take what is relevant from other cultures and add to what you have already. because you don't have all the answers. And those things that are no longer relevant, you jettison it. Those things that sustained us must be continued. According to John Henry Clark, if you go to Brandeis University, you will find that you attended a university founded by Jews for the best interest of Jews, and it will stay that way. And if you don't like it, let the door hit you. They don't change one iota to suit anybody. If you want to go to the university the way it is, it's all good. But if you want to change it, you have a problem. This is the same attitude that Africans must take. We need to have institutions that talk about African history and a contribution to civilized behavior. Right now, it does not exist on the continent or anywhere in the world. There's no university dedicated to, or any Black university anywhere in the world that is dedicated to Black people that teaches in African language. We don't have history books or science books, anything in African language. There is no attempt anywhere to educate Africans on their past history and their contributions to civilized behavior so that the next generation can have love for themselves and their ancestors.
You know, Dibia.
Yeah.
When I teach my students, they get mad at me. I deserve an A, one will write to me. I am going to call the university and report you because you didn't give me an A. I said, well, you didn't earn an A because all the references are all Eurocentric. You didn't even investigate what your own people thought about that particular issue. And there are lots of books out here written by African minds. You didn't think enough of them to research them and cite them. Exactly. You're giving me all these citations from, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't cite the thoughts, the research of others. Absolutely, you must. But to me, a good student, first of all, must ask himself or herself, what did my people think about this and who wrote about the same topic? Read it, then cite it and show me that your people matter, that what they think matter. Because if you don't do that, you don't matter. All you know, all you've regurgitated for me is what someone else thought. What about your people? Don't we have the same minds? Don't we think?
As a matter of fact, I'm just going to use what you just said now and align it with the current affairs of COVID-19. All right. Now, a lot of Africans talk about the fact that that you shouldn't take the vaccine because the Europeans are trying to kill people in Africa so that they could take over. Well, that may well and be true, you know, I mean, who knows? But here's what I know. We import everything from outside. We barely, even things that we grow in Nigeria, like Africa, I mean, like rice, we import from China. We import medicine. We import canned food. We import most of our diet, except those ones that are brought to the market, are imported. Mackerel in the can, milk, everything we consume. We're importers, we're consumers. If the Europeans wanted to kill us off, they would have killed us off a long time ago. But we refuse to take the vaccine if it does come to Africa. Now, wouldn't it be something if Africans came up with their own vaccine and we have a level of trust in that vaccine that we do with all the other food and stuff that we buy from abroad and import? And to the detriment of our people that sometimes they import fake rice, we eat it, and it's killing us. But we have confidence in those things that come in from abroad to Africa that we consume. But we probably will never have any confidence in any vaccine that is developed in Africa by Africans to stop COVID-19. When they bring the vaccine from outside, Europe or the United States or whatever to Africa, we're going to consume it because in the end, we don't have enough appreciation for ourselves or enough love for ourselves to come up with something that we could give our own people so that they have the level of confidence that we have when we're taking camoquine and nivaquine and chloroquine. Now, 10 years, 100 years from now, or whatever, when we talk about the eradication of COVID-19 in Africa, wouldn't it be nice to say that COVID-19 was eradicated in Africa because an African scientist came up with a cure, and it was adopted by Africans, given to Africans, and we were able to control COVID-19, as opposed to saying that we got it from Pfizer. These are the kinds of things that we have to understand so that we have a better appreciation for the contributions that ancestors have made to civilized behavior. Because these events and issues that we have today, if we're able to come up with solutions to those issues ourselves, 1,000 years from now, we're going to be reading it in textbooks if we have the kind of leadership that emphasizes this frame of reference. You see? So for me, without our ancestors, we are nothing, whether we appreciate them or not. Without our ancestors, the European is nothing. Without their ancestors, without the Japanese ancestors, they are nothing, because your DNA, your path was established by your ancestors. Whatever it is that you're enjoying today, whatever knowledge that you have today, was given to you by your ancestors. So we should be well advised to have a level of appreciation for our ancestors, because our future depends on it.
You say, thank you so much. I extended the program for additional 7 minutes because this is certainly a topic worth putting in time to discuss. And I just like to remind our viewers that we are still needing you. Tell your friends. If you appreciate what we're doing, then we urge you to please let your friends know, or you yourself, if you haven't done so, to go to our Facebook page, go to our YouTube page, and to our website. And on our YouTube page, please go there and go ahead and let us know that you visited. You know, make comments if you will. You know, subscribe if you can. It doesn't cost you anything, but it certainly lets us know that you appreciate what we're doing. I'd like to thank all the individuals that joined us today. Again, Nos Faratu, Charles Ogochukwu, Matthew Lewis. At least these are the people who made comments, and there were other individuals that joined: Ibrahim Tabari, Ahmed Mohammed, Salis Ishaq, Melody Britt, Zakar Mohammed Bapa. I hope I said the word correctly, the name correctly. But so we had individuals who joined us today. Thank you so much. It is when you join us and make your presence known that we know that we're not wasting our time, that you understand and you want to be a part of the solution. But we urge you to make sure that you bring your friends along. The next show we have is going to be next Sunday. And every Saturday now, I'm going to be doing the Heartside Confections, where we talk about spiritual things. And of course, on Sundays, we have Chism Live, which is educational. And spirituality and education go hand in hand. I always thank my co-host, DB Otraja. You're always on point, and what a blessing. You're your father's son. KOK on your hand. And nobody who listens to you can say they don't know KOK. Nobody who listens to me.
That's highly complimentary. I appreciate that.
Yeah, because KOK Ahain taught us that it's best to, regardless of what people feel about it, say it. Say it, be a part of the equation, talk about it. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your participation and your contribution. Just remember, our ancestors may have done things that we are not proud of, but it doesn't mean that we have to disrespect them or throw them away. If we don't like what they did, correct it.
Absolutely.
And part of our, repertoire moving forward. Thank you so very much. And we look forward to seeing you next Saturday. And of course, again, next Sunday. You all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, guys, yeah.
Yeah, guys, yeah. Yeah.